All
There
right.
it is.
Hey, I'm Uriah Kaiser with Potomac Local News. I'm the publisher of PotomacLocalNews.com, and joining us today on this live stream is Neabsco District Supervisor in Prince William County, Victor Angry. He's coming on and talking to us today about some of. Oh, I can hear myself. Let me kill my audio over here. All right, can you still hear me?
Yes, I can.
Tech issues always get us when we're live. All right, live TV, gotta love it. All right, listen, Victor Angry is on the live stream today. Appreciate you coming on. Wanted to talk to us about a couple things going on. Some of those things I do want to talk to you about today. You were reappointed to the Veterans Commission here in the state by Governor Northam. You've done a lot for veterans. I know you're wanting to do even more for veterans in Prince William County. I do want to talk about that. We've got a report coming up. We're expecting one from the Racial and Social Justice Commission. Some news broke about that this week, and I do want to get your reaction to that. But first, I want to talk about an issue that you have been talking about for a long time. Next Friday, December 10th, Sierra Dickerson is in a Prince William County courtroom to be sentenced in the death of Deborah Talbot. And for those who remember, on May 1st of 2020, Dickerson was speeding. She pled guilty to speeding on Cardinal Drive right there in your district. And Deborah Talbot was walking her dog, and Dickerson's car slammed right into her and unfortunately took her life, killed her right there on the scene. You pushed for a speed study on Cardinal Drive. It came back. The police department conducted the study. They said, listen, the posted speed limits, it's about 45 in there, 40, 45 in some areas, memory serves. They said things are pretty good. I mean, we can do more enforcement. We can pull more people over, stop them. But there is a little more that we can do in terms of the roadway, because it is a wide roadway. It's 4 lanes, right? But you've got a 4-lane roadway with a bunch of houses and people live right there. So talk to me about your work trying to get this done, trying to do something here in this corridor, and knowing that the sentencing for Miss Dickerson's coming up next week.
Yeah, and for you, I thank you for having me on this show. And I want to say this about Cardinal. It's a 4-lane road, but remember, very minimal traffic lights. So that right there paints the picture of this situation we find ourselves in. And this is just Cardinal Drive. So there's many more roads. Dale Boulevard is a notorious road. Darby-Dale cut-through road is a notorious road. Like, these are all bad situations, but I'll stick to Cardinal Drive because, and I want to go on record of saying this, and I said it from the dais. I used to speed. And the day I stopped speeding was the day that Miss Talbot was killed, tragically killed on that road, because the rest of the story is she posted on Facebook a few days earlier that there's a speeding problem on Cardinal Drive. Somebody do something about it before when someone gets killed. And then unfortunately, it's her a few days or even a day later, which, stuck in my mind to really hit home to the fact that this is all of our problems. So when I keep talking about people speeding on the road, generally I'm talking to the person that's looking me in my eyes. I'm not saying that's you, Uriah. I'm saying, we are our own worst enemies, and we sit here and talk about these issues, but we do it. And so I recognize I'm that person and that I was a speeder, and so I do not speed. But what's important, what for me, what I'm seeing now, because I do the speed limit, is how many people are just recklessly speeding up and down these roads. And it is a serious problem.
So are you continuing to push more law enforcement out on this street and in other wide streets, Dale Boulevard being one of them? Do you continue to tell the police in the county, listen, I still want, it's been 1.5 years since this incident, but are you still pushing for the enforcement?
Yes, I sure am. And let me say something. I think Chief Newsom said it best. Going back to your study of VDOT, he called them bad actors. The thing that frustrates me about road studies is that they will always come back saying that there's not an issue, because it's always those one-offs that ruin it for everybody else. And it really is. I travel Cardinal Drive now because my office, as you know now, is near Nova College. So when I go home, I travel that road. And there's always 1 to 2 cars that want to weave in and out and cut through traffic because they're moving exceedingly faster than the rate of traffic. Now we have speed cameras. They're not traffic enforcement cameras, but they're excuse me, not even cameras. They're speed radars that show you how fast you're going. That's not good enough. And we have one on Cardinal. We have one on Dale Boulevard. They're starting to pop up around the county now, but that's not good enough because all it shows you is that, yes, you're doing 55 and a 35. And people don't slow down. The ones that are bad actors continue to speed. Now, those who may have been caught off guard, doing whatever they're doing in their minds and hopefully not texting and driving, because that's a notorious problem, that they realize they're speeding when they see that and they slow down. I see that happening. But there are those bad actors that just messes up for everybody. So yes, I am continually to push for this. I can tell you right now, next year, I'm going to be, and hopefully the board will support me on this, literally putting the speed cameras in the school zones and the construction zones.
So you're going to push for speed cameras in school zones.
I'm telling you right now, you're right. You will. That is my first move out the gate to do this. And I'm working with the Chief Newsham. We're going to have a meeting to talk about what that looks like. How do we do that? And I know an issue. I've been working with other counties and jurisdictions that have this in place. City of Fairfax.
Manassas is one of them. Manassas is putting up quite a few cameras along their heavily trafficked areas. Now, it's fair to say Fairfax City, Manassas City, they're just that. They're cities, and they sort of make their own rules. They really take care of their own roads, and they don't have to go through the Virginia Department of Transportation. What are some of the challenges that you're aware of? Because Prince William County does not take care of its own roads when it comes to maintenance. You rely on VDOT, and you kind of have to ask for permission from VDOT to do a great many things.
You're right. That is a nightmare. That is a nightmare because I have to go through delegation now. I got to go through Richmond because we really have to change some of these policies and procedures that we have in place in Richmond on how that works. And I got to go through that because, it's what I want to do in Carlton Drive. I think those rumble strips on the side that tells you if you're veering off the road, when you hear that noise, could pull you back on the road. I think that speed cameras are a real deal. I think, a traffic light, I know people don't necessarily want that because honestly, all it does is make people run yellow lights. We have a lot of accidents, studies have shown, I don't know the numbers on that yet, but a lot of these accidents are at the intersection where people are running yellow lights, and those are pretty traumatic. So there's a lot to be done with VDOT, and that does frustrate me that a lot of the things that we want to do, we have to go through VDOT first. So we are working with our local transportation, Rick Canizales, and in his office, and really trying to get VDOT to look at some of the things they're doing. Let's talk about Neabsco for a second. This is a very older district, so our neighborhoods and roadways and communities are already built out, but they're built to 70s standards of VDOT. Today, when you build a new community, they put in these traffic calming circles. They put in, tightening down the street so that you really have to slow down to get through them. They're doing a lot of these calming measures, but I got an older district that, we keep talking about walkability and wanting this live, work, play process. But if I were to do that, it just puts people in another situation. Cardinal Drive is a classic example of that. That roadway now is a cut through because we still are a community that works in DC. And this is a 66 to 95 problem. People use their GPS to cut from 66, come up 234, any other road they can, and they cut through the neighborhoods to get to 95, going north or back road, 123, whatever road you can get that gets you there faster. And that's a problem. So,
and that's the thing about your district. I mean, if I want to go to Potomac Mills Mall, there's 5 different ways I can go, through your district.
Right now I'm having problems on Miniville Road as well. As you well know, we had the one, I think that was a DUI that slammed into the house off Miniville and literally hit a gas line and caught the house on fire. That just sent that whole area into turmoil, which is, was rightfully so, which, I'm going over to meet with that HOA to discuss some things that we could look into doing.
Well, one of the things that we always heard from, from the police department every year, they put out their crime stats. They talk about also crashes and accidents in the county, and some of the intersections on this end of the county are just too darn big. They always hear that, especially when you look at, let's say, Prince William Parkway and Smoketown Road. That right there. There's 20 lanes of traffic. When you factor in the turn lanes right there, you got 20 lanes of traffic coming all right there. And a lot of I know, and I grew up in Dale City, I know down in the M's, the streets are wider than they may be in the A's and B's. And one of the things that your predecessor, Corey Stewart, would always say on the board is that some of the roads are just too darn wide. And when you have wider roads, people tend to speed more. So one of the things that Senator Scott Surreville was talking about at a recent joint delegation meeting of your board and politicians from Richmond, is talking about getting some more money or a dedicated funding source for pedestrian improvements. Because right now, a lot of the transportation projects, whether they be buses, rail, roads, what have you, they get the funding over sidewalks and pedestrian bridges and pedestrian safety projects. So in addition to speed cameras, you say that you're all about, what will you do to try to get some push for a pot of funding for pedestrian improvement?
Well, I want you to know, you're right. You were in the room when he said it, because I talked to Senator Survell about that. The number one thing for me too is pedestrian bridges, but everybody says the same thing. Well, they cost too much. Well, figure it out. I don't know why they cost so much, but pedestrian bridges would solve a lot of these problems. You see what happened out in Gainesville when Supervisor Cameron was discussing about the 16-year-old, unfortunately got killed crossing the street to the school. But that should have no brainer, more than likely have a pedestrian cross bridge that connects across that major, huge intersection. No different from right here on Dale Boulevard, crossing over between this complex and Stonebridge Town Center, which I have Freedom High School, Nova College. All these kids walk up and down this road and they cross Dale Boulevard. That intersection right there is the exit for 95. It's the entrance of Route 1. It's Stonebridge. It's this development, and cars, I mean, literally fly through that intersection. And that's a pretty wide intersection. There should definitely be a pedestrian cross bridge there.
I can tell you from experience, when I was going to Nova as a much younger guy and the bus didn't show up, my happy butt had to walk over to the Potomac and Rappahannock Transportation Office to catch the bus. And that's no easy walk. And so you're absolutely right. That is a very congested area. Well, last question about transportation. Supervisor Cadland in his district out in Gainesville, were two teens have died this year because they were crossing busy Route 15 near Haymarket. And we also had a pedestrian, a child struck near Woodbridge High School in Lake Ridge. Fortunately, that child did not die, but that child did suffer severe injuries and was taken to a hospital. Supervisor Canlon floated the idea of a pedestrian safety referendum on next November's ballot, and that would be similar to the transportation referendum that the Board of Supervisors did in 2019, where we got $350 million of projects for roads, for cars, for drivers, but none for pedestrians. Would you support Kathleen's effort on a pedestrian safety bond?
I will tell you like this, Uriah, that better be a bipartisan, support. Like, it better be like, that's something. What we do is all about the people. So right, wrong, whatever we go through in our personal, conversations, that's for the people. And we have to do something like that. And especially if they support it. Everything we do is about taxpayers' dollars. So we can, use some of that, to support public safety. I mean, it's just the right thing to do. So yeah, I definitely support that.
Let me shift gears on you now, because it is December, and about 14 months ago, the Board of Supervisors created the Racial and Social Justice Commission with the mission of going in and examining the county, looking at where there's, I guess, problems with equity. Some people may not being treated as fairly as they could be. This, of course, followed the we had a riot incident outside of Manassas where 5 police officers were injured, several tear gas were used, multiple jurisdictions were called in, and so in October of 21. The board created the Racial and Social Justice Commission. Part of that was to look at the police department and see the hiring practices and make sure everything was above board. We're expecting a report now to your board. The community is going to hear that for the first time. One of the things that the board did, the commission did earlier this year was sort of put out a call for people to come in and share their story, right? If they felt like they've been treated unfairly, please come in and talk to us. And this was back in the spring. Reverend Cozy Bailey, he's the NAACP chapter Prince William president and husband of Supervisor Andrea Bailey, who sits on your board, sparked an investigation when he said that he heard a racial slur that was used in 2017 at a leadership symposium at the police department. He was invited to come in and speak in 2017, and he heard a racial slur used toward him. A investigation was sparked by County Executive Kristen Martino. The results of that investigation are out, and those comments were found to be unfounded. The investigation talked to 45 different police officers, 6 of whom are now retired. And so it did take up a chunk of the year, was sparked by this commission. Do you think that this is what the commission was supposed to do, set out to do? Do you think that it's doing a good job? And what are you expecting to hear? Are you looking forward as you look forward to the report coming in?
Yes. All right. So, and trying to, I don't want to be long-winded, but I'm going to try to get in the order of your questioning. One of the things that I will give Chief Newsom credit for is investigating the allegations of Reverend Cozy Bailey, because had he not done that, then you can already imagine that the perception out there in the world would have been that Prince William County doesn't care about these allegations, and then that would have sparked another discussion about what we're not doing. I think it's unfortunate because as a military retired command sergeant major and have done many investigations into the allegations or allegations, it's always his story, their story, and the truth somewhere in the middle. But this has been an ongoing investigation. I know it's cost the community a couple of thousands of dollars in doing so. And as unfortunate as that is, it's fortunate that we went through the process of that. I can't comment on whether Reverend Cozy Bailey's comments, his allegations to the situation, they happened versus the findings of the investigation that says they couldn't find anything, or where that truth lies in the middle.
Is this how you envision the commission would be used? And do you think this is how the commission should be used going forward?
No, that is not. The point of, and I'm glad you got back to the commission, which was the second point. The point of that Racial Social Justice Commission was 100% to look into racially, socially motivated or injustices. And that would be, bottom line, African Americans, Hispanic Americans, where there are some racial injustices. It has morphed into many more other things in that. But I will say that even in the discussions and hearing people's stories, it's not now the time to dig into those investigations, because the point of the commission was to realize that whether it's green, blue, or red, that we have issues that we need to say, we get this report and we're looking and say, okay, we got some things we need to look into, which then would spark a conversation about what are we looking into. I think if we continue to go down every one of these situations, we'll find ourselves spending a lot of funds and then realizing that either they're going to be substantially confirmed that these are true allegations, or we're going to find ourselves back to where we were with your version versus this version and the truth somewhere in the middle. So I don't think that this is not a time to do that. This is not a time to fact find, gather what's the pulse of Prince William County when it comes to racial injustices. This all was stemmed out of George Floyd, so let's not forget that. I think the further we come down the road of this, we lose sight of how we got here, which is why I always preach the backstory. We always got to remember what's the foundation of the conversation that we're in and why we're doing this, and stick to that, and then get to the end of this, which is now in the period where you just discussed that we're going to have a report come out that says or shows whatever that may be. I don't know
what are you hearing. What are you hearing this report might say? I mean, what should people be?
Look at there. I just brought that up. What I've done with my commissioner that I appointed, Chris, is that I stayed away from it. And the reason I stayed away from it, because I don't want to influence that. I know that I'm an elected official with serious power in this county for this. So I stayed away. I want him to do his work with that commission. And then we'll get the results and the findings and go from there. So I honestly got to tell you, I don't know what that report's going to be. I do know that they investigated the police. They did some committees that broke out into certain areas and went through that. So I know they've done a lot of work. I just don't know what these results are going to be. It's almost like Christmas morning, waiting to see what president is when we open it. So
there you go. And I'll make 3 points before we move on to the next topic. This commission was made up of an appointee from each of the 8 members of the Board of Supervisors. Each member had their own appointee on the board, on the commission, I should say. And this allegation from Reverend Bailey, he said it occurred in September of 2017. he did not report it until May of 2021. And so in the police investigation, they made note that since it was over 1,200 days since the alleged slur was used, it's really impossible on their part to find out if it really did happen. And the third point about the commission, I may have forgotten my third point. Well, no, I did not forget my third point. I think it may be very important to note that the Prince William Police Department has a 96% citizen satisfaction rating. It consistently rates high amongst the citizens who are surveyed at least every 2 to 5 years, asking about their satisfaction with the department. Now, speaking about serving a community, you've served your country, and now you've been reappointed to serve the Board of Veterans Services in the state. Your job on that board, obviously, is to take care of veterans. This morning, the Washington Examiner reported that Governor-elect Glenn Youngkin says he wants Virginia to be the best state for veterans in America. And so what does that mean for you as you get appointed to that board?
I will tell you first, if you're going to make that statement, which I applaud Governor-elect Youngkin for making that statement, is that let me just come out the gate and just tell you, Florida doesn't tax veteran retirement pay, neither does Texas, and Virginia does. So I'm going to leave it at that. I mean, that's a big undertaking. But
you drop the mic and walk away.
I mean, this is, for a veteran to stay in this area, and I'm going to give a plug to Virginia, for a veteran to stay in this area, knowing that their retirement pay is taxed, tells you that Virginia is doing great things for veterans. Okay, because it really is leading the nation and really drilling down into veteran issues and literally putting systems in place that address them. Now, I'm down boots on the ground at the lowest level as a county supervisor, whether I'm a supervisor or a commissioner, or a council person. These are like literally boots on the ground. And so sometimes at the lowest level, you're not seeing the results that you want to see with veteran services, but they're there. And so this is why I'm proud to be on this board for the veteran service for the state, because, I can address whether Prince William County is being addressed, and I can address whether Fauquier County is being addressed, and I can address whether, Manassas City and Manassas Park and, Town of all these places are being addressed with the veterans issues. And do they know what we really have in place statewide that are here to address? And there's a lot out there, Uriah. Like, we got an umbrella so big. Our Veterans Commission that we just stood up in Prince William County is really to do two things: capture all these great organizations that are doing this great work, and then find out what all those issues are that veterans are having. And they run the gamut. Like, there's a million issues. And I think the most latest recent issue that I want to really hammer home is that we literally cleared everybody out of Afghanistan and the war in the Middle East. There are a lot of service members back home right now that don't know their place because that's all they've been doing. That is a serious post-traumatic stress issue, okay? Because even when I retired out of the military to come into the world of what we call the civilian world, it's very different. And so if that's all you've been doing for a while, and you've been spooling up to do this, and you're on your third or fourth rotation of that, and now it's over and you're here, that's a cultural adjustment that you got to, we got to place emphasis on to really see.
So one of the things that you and Supervisor Angela Franklin and Margaret Angela Franklin have done on the board is to look at not only set up your Veterans Commission as Commission on Veterans, as you have already done, that's up and running, but you're also looking at putting a new Veteran Service Center in the county to serve veterans and to make them aware of some of those benefits, I guess, that they may not be aware of. So talk to me about some of the things. If you're just getting out of the military, I'm sure your mindset, maybe you're excited, right? You don't know what's next. You may be confused. You may be scared. There's a lot of feelings that are going on for veterans as they transition, or may have been out for years. They may not be taking advantage. I know, for instance, my grandfather never knew about the VA medical services that were available to him. He never knew until he would much later in life. And so what is it that you want to do to get more people in our region aware of some of the benefits, especially for those who have served?
Yeah, well, I'm sure I hadn't met your grandfather, but I met someone just like your grandfather. Vietnam vet, and his wife told me that every night she goes through his reliving being in a foxhole in Vietnam, and it's basically an abusive night. Like, she goes through this every night with him. He had never gone to VA. I think that gentleman got $1 million check. It's probably overstepping the million, but he got one of the things is there's a lot that goes to the service of what you've done. And so the VA, Veterans Affairs, takes care of those issues and also lines you up with the services that you need. He finally got that, but that was only after meeting me. And that's unfortunate because I was out the military clearly for 8 years. And this man had been removed from Vietnam clearly for many, many years. And so that was interesting. But let me just say this here. The reason this center in Prince William County would be important because the best way, and every military organization or leader in it knows, when we say take care of our own, it literally becomes your company, your brigade, your battalion, your group of folks that you represent. And in Prince William County, we have roughly 42,000 veterans that we represent. The greatest way to take care of them is to have the services right here that you can give them. Now, we have centers in the county and in Manassas that the state fund and service. So the biggest question of the day when it comes to something that we're going to take on ourselves is always funding. So we got to get ourselves in a situation to be able to handle something like that. The beautiful part is in the interim that we have these service centers here that can help us sustain a lot of what we're finding out. And what I mean by finding out, I just talked about Afghanistan. You know, we're finding out what you've always known about the opioid addiction and crisis. And here's a problem. Many vets will go through the VA system of getting medical treatment, but then VA has to release them. And VA is a very convoluted system, and we've known this for a while. They've gotten a lot better, really a lot better, but there's still gaps. And so we find service members who are out here using cheap drugs, right? Because it helps calm them for whatever the situation may be. I know this personally because I am a first responder. I'm a volunteer firefighter, and I've picked up many veterans with needles still in their arms who we get the help they need and understand the story of how they got there, which is somehow they fell out the system and got lost. You know,
and what's the best way for someone who needs to access the system and may not even know what door to go in? What's the best way for them to get help?
Well, I can tell you, really start with our community services, you know. So our community services department will link you with the veteran organization you need. But I will tell you, we've got Nova Veterans, you know, awesome. I'm going to give her a plug. Angela McConnell, retired Air Force Colonel, has a super organization that literally works with vets. The thing to answer that question you just said is there is so much out there. So I would say come through the county and let us guide you to the organization, the place that you need to get the services that you need.
And then businesses can, I mean, I imagine there's room for businesses to help out too. One of the organizations, Veterans Grow Virginia, I think now it's Veterans Grow America. Donnell Johns is a great guy, and he's always looking to partner with businesses. But is there room for that here in the county too?
Yes, there is. Yeah. And here's the deal. Veterans, we do take care of our own. We take care of each other. And I'm glad you brought up Donnell Johns, retired Command Sergeant Major. He and I served together. And he is, you know, we've been out of the military for a while now, and we're still committed to taking care of soldiers, service members. Doesn't matter what branch of service. It's a family unit that we all understand what that means. And it doesn't matter whether you've gone through combat or you've just done some time, but when you get out, it's a different flavor, if you will, being out of the military versus, you know, serving. So I'm glad you brought him up because Veterans Grow America is another area that this commission was looking into, which is veteran-owned businesses and those folks that want to get involved in their own businesses, and how do we create, you know, this opportunity for that to be a real thing. You know, there's so much to it, and a lot of people aren't aware of these opportunities. So,
well, Supervisor Angry, thank you for your service, your military service, and the Army. It was 8 years where you were in the Army?
Oh no. 23.
23. I stand corrected. I do apologize.
Well, it's been 10 years since I've been out of the Army. So I retired in 2011. So I think, yeah, which is odd because it seems so long ago, but it also seems like yesterday. And like I tell everybody, right, I still got my bags packed. I'm ready to serve. I can go in. I can still pass the PT test.
There you go.
Still do this. So,
and the uniform still fits, obviously. So you're good to go.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Supervisor Angry, appreciate your service to the country and your service to the county and to the constituents as well. And thank you for coming on this stream to talk about what's happening in the community. If you do like this video, you do feel like you got some use out of this and what we're talking about here, smash that like button. Do subscribe to whatever service you're watching this video on. We'll make sure that we make more of this type of content for you right here on PotomacLocal.com.
And thank you, Uriah. Yes.